welcome everybody. Thursday training, CBD BioCare, yours truly, Matthew Pitts. We are covering the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And today we're talking about 3 more ways to get people to like you. And it might sound shallow when you're like, hey, I just want people to like me. But we all know that there's a lot of depth in this, and the depth is in personal relationship. So before I get started, let me open the floor. Do we have any? Hey, good morning, Miss Val. Morning, Reese. Or morning. I feel like I'm going to night church, like walking through the hall. Morning. No. Good evening. Good afternoon, everyone. Joseph Paul Petroselli, leading leadership training for managers. Woo! I love it, Joe. Man, that's nice. You got it, man. That's very nice, man. That's cool. That's way cool. All right. Anybody got Joe just showed up a certificate. We've been talking a lot about a certain topic, and it's just nice to see people moving and progressing. And I like the old A-Team Hannibal. I just love it when a plan comes together, and it seems like Joe's plan's starting to come together. So cool deal, dude. Anybody got anything before we get started? Once the faucet gets open, the spigot's open, it runs. So if you want to get something in right now, it'd be a good time. I don't have Leandro to hold me up in here today. All right, we'll get rolling. Y'all raise your hand or get my attention some way if you want to join in and participate in any way, shape, or form. All right, so I really actually like what we're going through right now, because it does speak to the why people do things. And I'm gonna it's such a robust topic that I want to throw out a few things that I thought of, and I hope I don't lead us into the wilderness here, into the desert. But I find, and you guys who know me and have been around me long enough, I am interested in the why people do things, in the condition of the human condition, so to speak. And I used to do training years ago, and I used an analogy. I had ACL replacement back, 20 years, maybe 25 years ago. And I remember asking the doctor, how it was a patella tendon graft was a procedure that they used. And I remember asking him, like, how does that work? How do you do that, doc? And I am kind of geeky in that way, and I was a little fascinated in the how. But if I really reflect on it, the real reason I probably asked is just to know that he knows what he's doing, right? And so my point is, at least for me in that moment, my point is, a lot of times people ask questions, and I ask myself 2 things every time I'm asked a question. It's kind of become innate now. First is, why are they asking the question? And 2 is, do I want to answer it? And that just reminds me that I have the freedom to not answer a question if I choose not to. I'm not suggesting that everyone do that. I'm just telling you what my practice is. Because a lot of times, especially when I have that approach, and certainly if Stacy were here, she would amen, we all do it. We ask loaded questions. Sometimes it's subconscious, sometimes it's very conscious. It's a passive way to achieve a different agenda. And I'm sure that, in the interest of time, I'm not going to come up with a ton of examples. The only ones that I have are with people that are close to my life that you guys might know, and I don't want to incriminate myself. But it's almost, again, it's hard. I hope that we can all come up with our own examples on what a loaded question looks like. So here, when we start talking about that people's actions certainly don't express the exact why they're doing it, but I'm interested in why people do the things they do. And he draws an example that I think is great. And a lady, he's getting ready to go to an event, and a lady at the event, Dale is, and a lady at the event knows he's coming. And, he writes this, he's told that she was very excited to meet him. And when he came in, she asked him and said, I have heard about all your travels. I'm a traveler. I would just love to hear about some of the places and the cultures and the things that you've seen. And he asked her a question. You say you're a traveler. Where have you gone? And she mentioned a few places, and she mentioned Africa. And he told her, he said, I've not been to Africa except for a 24-hour layover in some African city, or whatever they call it, and asked her about that, and said for the entire night, she spoke to him and shared all the things that she had done, and he allowed her to do that. So I think that's a great example. I'm not saying that I feel like, when I read it, I felt like she was insincere and manipulative in trying to get this opportunity. I really do think that she wanted just to engage with him. There's there's certain laws that I really subscribe to. And one of the laws for our human condition that I believe in is that we all want to be respected by those whom we respect. So I believe that she respected him and asked, and I do believe that she had a curiosity of where he'd been. But when he gave her an opportunity to speak about herself, and in her mind, in her conscious or subconscious, it was her chance to glean his respect. And there's several examples like that. Like, I'd rather point to the examples that Dale gives than personal examples in my life, because I think it's more, I think it matters more than me saying something. Again, I don't know who I'm going to say without somebody knowing who they are. So I wrote here that there's a human condition, a human truth at work here, and that is that people want to be respected by people that they respect. We want to be respected by those whom we respect. But also, we have to go back to what we've been studying and what we've been proving through examples. And we're all, we've all been nodding our head and amen and the whole way through. And that when we come out of the womb, we come out as selfish, self-thinking, egotistical, narcissistic beings. It's just how we are. I mean, like I said, my 14-year-old boy is just now learning that the whole world doesn't revolve around him. And I think he's really mature for that at 14, especially for a dude. Like, I was an idiot till I was 25. I literally thought I thought I was the center of the earth probably till I was 23 to 24. And it wasn't until 25 that I realized what an idiot I was. It's like Mark Twain said, when I was 18, I was shocked at what an idiot my dad was. By the time I turned 22, I was amazed at how much he had learned in 4 short years, right? So it happens. There's a human truth at work here, and that is that people do want to talk about themselves. And this is especially difficult for me. I am a communicator. I do look to relate. I do look to find common ground. And I think in doing that, I think we're all, guilty of it, some more so than others, maybe me on the more side. But I think sometimes in an effort to relate and illustrate that there's common ground, I think sometimes we take the microphone or we pull the stage out from under someone in their expression of their own stories about themselves, about their own experiences, about their own things they care about. So my dad and I used to have it, and Stacy hates it when I do it. My dad and I used to call it back to me. Picture this, any conversation, 2 people, 5 people, whatever, and someone's talking about their trip to wherever, Hawaii. And as soon as they get done, someone else chimes in about their trip and they want to talk about their trip. And then someone else, it's like, and it's a back to me, right? And I have been guilty of this. Have you ever been talking to someone or been that person where you can just see that it's almost like, remember double Dutch? You remember the double jump rope? Has anybody ever double Dutched when you were a kid? Thank you. You remember when you're like, all right, I'm getting ready to go. I'm going to jump in, man. And then you get in there and you do it, man. I feel like sometimes people are in that double Dutch mode when I'm talking. And certainly I have done that. And I try, I really work at it. I can only imagine how much I would stink at it if I didn't work at it, because I reached the bottom rung of mediocrity at it just by trying a lot. So I think it also happens, like I'm thinking of hey, I just took my wife, to St. Pete Beach. We had a great weekend and it was great. It's like, hey, I just took my wife to Hawaii. We were there for a month. It's like we upstage people. And honestly, it comes from a lack of self-worth. I mean, as I'm reading through the text that we're covering today, it didn't dawn on me, but it was made very clear to me that we have to have a high level of self-worth to put and let someone else be on stage. And I'll give you an example. When I was really working at this, and I love this example because when I was in financial service industry is when I kind of was studying a lot of this. That's when I read this book, by the way. And I remember I would go into people's offices or their homes, to have client or prospect interaction. And if I play golf. So if I saw a set of golf clubs, if I saw a trophy, whatever, I would say, hey, you play golf? Yeah. Hey, do you like it? I love it. You need good? Well, no. I'm lucky if I shoot a 95. And at that time, I'm shooting 80. I'm in the high 70s, low 80s. I'm playing a lot, but there was a part of me early on, and I think if it went ungoverned, I would have, certainly as a younger man, I would have looked to disclose that, right? To show that I'm good at something, that, try to glean respect. And it's such a wrong way of thinking. So I adapted this. I was like, man, you actually are pretty good if you shoot a 95. And the guy or gal would look at me and I go, do you know that only 10% of all golfers in the world break 100 when they play? And that's true. So it's another example. I remember I used to talk smack with a buddy I worked with, Andy Riddle. I worked with him for 4 years, great guy. And we never did, but we always used to talk smack about basketball. Like we'll play one-on-one, I'll whoop you, I'll whoop you, I'll whoop you. And it wasn't until right before we stopped working together that I learned that he played college basketball. He never told me. I think he was waiting to get me on the court so then he could show me and whoop me. But I always really respected that, because at that stage in my life, this is many years ago, at that stage in my life, I'd have been the first one to tell somebody I played college basketball. Like to me, it would have been a badge of honor. Like, hey, I play, not only will I whoop you, but I'll whoop you because, and it just, I actually told that to James, and that story really resonated with James. He's brought that up several times over the past several years. And it's just about having the self-worth to be able to really care and be interested and curious about what is important to the other person. We're a long way away from selling CBD right now in this discussion. We're in the business of giving people someone to listen. And that's really kind of what this comes down to, is being a good listener, being an interested and curious listener, and not for the sake of finding a fact that we can tie and put in a set of verbiage that might lead us to a sale. I'm not talking about that. We've had many discussions about the proper swing of a baseball bat. And it all starts with the approach. And if the approach is right, the balance is right, the hands are going in the right place, the head's in the right spot, when we come into contact with that ball, when we have communication with people, that's when we hit it out of the park. But if we're so like, oh, I'm gonna aim this bat there so that I hit it there and maybe I get, it's like, it doesn't work like that. You have to have faith in the process, and that process, part of that is being confident enough to let someone else be on stage and to let someone else be a star, and to not promote ourselves and to not share, our own personal accolades of ourselves. And listen, it doesn't come from, I'm not even talking about, to the person who's, the arrogant dude. I don't mean that. I mean someone like me or you who's sincerely trying to find common ground, who's sincerely trying to find a connection. I'm just illustrating that if we do that, if we take the microphone away from them and go back to me and talk about ourselves, we're putting ourselves on the wrong side of human behavior, right? It's almost like getting pulled over by the cop and yelling at them. What do you think is going to happen? You think it's going to work out well for you? And that's what I mean. If somebody's got a customer service issue and they go in, my dad, he used to drive me nuts. He hated hospitals, poor guy, and he had reason to. He had some bad experiences. And I remember one of the last times I went to the hospital with him, I didn't leave him there and abandon him there, but I was make sure he was taken care of. I couldn't get out of there fast enough, because as soon as we got in there, he was curt and he was rude to the very nurses that were in charge of his care. And my dad's a smart guy. He's the guy that got me on the path of searching for wisdom. So I remember my dad told me a long time ago, he said, if you ever hear me say, I failed to find the wisdom in that, that's me calling somebody an idiot. That's what my dad said. He goes, if you hear me say that, in my mind, I'm saying you're an idiot. And so obviously, what did I say to him? I said, Dad, I failed to find the wisdom in mistreating the very people that are going to care for you. Like, how does that add up to you? Like, how is the result of that equation, that formula, a positive for you? And I think if you can get people like my dad to pull out of that emotion, if we can pull out of that emotion, then I think it's easy to see, because he saw it immediately. As soon as I gave him that 30,000 foot view, he goes, you know what? And to his credit, he was that guy. He'd be like, you're probably right, son. And, it ended up working out. So let me grab a sip of water here. We're 20 minutes in. Any comments, concerns, errors, omissions, additions, cares? All right, we'll keep going. Let me see where I am. See, I get off my notes. I'm such an extemporaneous speaker. It gets me in trouble a lot of times. All right, here are the don'ts. A great conversationalist is a great listener. Listening is an active activity. It's an active behavior. I have said it before. If you're telling me something that's important to you, now I think if you're telling me anything, you're going to feel this emotion. But if you're telling me something that's important to you, and I even do that with my phone, just who's calling, it's lost because and it doesn't, like, I'm not saying it's lost because we're careless, heartless, thoughtless, selfish. I don't mean that. I mean, people's perspective is their reality. People's perspective is their reality. It's in the eyes of the beholder. If you make a gesture that indicates you're not listening to me, you haven't listened. It's almost like in my baseball analogies, but the kids would get so upset. It wasn't a strike. Yeah, it was. He called it a strike. Like, it is what it is. People's perception is their guiding truth. It is the truth to them. I mean, if I grew up in Zimbabwe and I was told that this color is white, my whole life, my whole village calls black white. When I come over here and I call this white, that's my truth. I'm not saying culturally it's right, or correct, but that's my truth. So it is right. Like, and I'm actually starting to write a book about that concept. It's based on 360-degree thinking, meaning that every thought, opinion, and or attitude does not have a direct opposite. It has a difference. So the kind of the subtitle would be, there's more than one right. There's more than one correct. Yeah, I mean, if I ask you who the greatest guitarist in the world is, we have, and everybody on here said a different guitarist. Who would be right? Who would be wrong? So that's the concept. So listening is an active behavior. So if you could be the most intent listener in the world, but if you're the type of person that listens better when you're looking at a ceiling tile, you're not going to communicate that to someone. So the don'ts are: don't interrupt, don't contradict, and don't irritate. It seems simple. The hard part is when somebody brings up an opinion that we don't agree with, or someone believes that something is a fact where we believe that fact is different. It doesn't talk about it in the book, but the question, what I tell my kids and myself, the first thing, and this might be one of the greatest assets or tips to a long marriage or great friendship or relationship, and that is, ask yourself if the fact that we're disagreeing, if it's important, right? I mean, you see people getting in the deepest arguments about, who's more powerful, Superman or Batman. It's like, does it really matter? I know it's a silly example, but in a marriage, it comes up all the time. And I got to be honest with you, and this is not stage talk. I think, just at a glance, I think somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 to 9.5% is the things out of the 100% of things that Stacy and I might disagree on. It's literally less than 10% that I come to a conclusion where it really matters. And some do. Some have recently, and we've had a lot of, stuff going on in our culture and a lot of value systems that are being tested. And there's certain lines I'm going to dig my heel in on. But as I get older and as I build more confidence, I realize that number of things that are really important, like, is it worth the disagreement? Does it matter at the end of the day? And I mean, it's next to nothing. And I do that a lot with the kids. Like, they'll be kind of, and my kids get along great. I don't deal with that, the cliche of the sibling battles. They really get along great, but sometimes they get in kind of a little bit of a tiff, and it's like, hey guys, does it really matter? And they'll look at me, give it some thought, and go, no, probably not. And so I think that makes it easier because we are emotional beings first, we're data beings second, and that emotion can be really overwhelming and really powerful. And I will tell you that most of it comes from, I felt disrespected. I felt this. It comes from a lack of confidence because, I mean, here's a great example. The most wealthy people that I know, I mean, people of real means, serious means, you would know it if you saw them. They don't need to show you. The ones that are trying to get there, they're the ones, they're the ones and I'm not saying wealthy people can't have nice stuff. I'm just saying in my life, the ones that are really, really well, I mean, I'm talking big time money, they literally, they wear LL Bean shorts and white New Balance shoes, and they drive an old Toyota truck. And, it's just, you just wouldn't know. And I think the reason is because there's a difference. Like if someone likes great things and likes things, that's okay. But I think a lot of people are being more showy. It's more about optics than it is anything. So anyway, all right. Number 5, how to interest people. Have people talk about what's interesting to them. A lot of rehash here, right? Find out what's interesting to people. How do you do that? You ask great questions, real curious questions. There's a book called The Aladdin Factor, and it's written by Canfield. That's the whole premise of the book, is that the value of your life, or the abundance of your life, is going to be somewhat tied to the value of the questions that you ask. It's a fantastic book, a great read. It's a little thick, but Canfield's a good read. So if you are interested in how to really ask great questions, and he does a great job in that book of talking less about where the bat meets the ball and more about the mental preparation. Because if the hands are right, the balance is right, the mind's right, you're going to ask right questions. Like, you don't really have to think about the contact. You just have to think about the mindset getting there. So there was a movie called Son-in-Law. Anybody ever seen that with Pauly Shore? Old movie, cute movie. You don't need to have seen it to get the story. But farm girl leaves farm, goes to college in like LA or something, brings back Pauly Shore to this conservative little farm thing. And they end up kind of building a relationship, and Pauly's fishing with the dad. And the girl's got a little brother who's into video games. And at that time, I mean, this was the late 80s, maybe early 90s. So it wasn't like PS4, it was like a handheld games. And they were talking, and he said something about, yeah, those stupid games. And Pauly goes, they're not stupid to him. To him, they're important. And man, I get some of the most cathartic moments in these dumb movies. One of my major cathartic moments was in the old cartoon He-Man. Believe it or not, changed my life. So anyway, it's like that hit me. It's like, and Stacy and I say that sometimes. Sometimes it could be easy to be flippant, 27 years in, and sometimes we have to remind ourselves, hey, if it's important to you, it's got to be important to me. I need to adopt that perspective, even if I don't have it. So now I may not even care about the topic that you're talking about. Now I care that you care. Like, you see what I'm saying? So I can tag on to Stacy. I may not really give a real rip about what she's really talking about, but I can, like those video games, like that old man, he didn't really care about the video games, but at the end of the movie, he's playing video games with his son. That's his way. He found a way to connect. And sometimes the things that we rebel against in another person that we find irritating, that rub us the wrong way, sometimes that's a disguised opportunity for real connection. I mean, one never knows where loyalty and connection comes from sometimes. So find what's interesting in people. I think it's easy if a guy shows up in a brand new, center engine or mid-engine Corvette, he's obviously a car guy. If you see, pictures of, if you're in front of the person, you see photos of family all over the place, boats. I mean, just be observant. If the person's got a lot of jewelry on, I mean, just find something that's interesting to them. Find interest in that. So I used to learn so many cool things. I learned the most cool things about knitting one time. You might say, well, Matthew, are you interested in knitting? I was not interested in knitting until this lady said she was a knitter. And then I was like, yeah, I want to learn not to knit, but I don't know anything about it. So yeah, I want to hear about it. And that interest is infectious when you really have it. So if it's someone that you're, anyway, I'm not going to go. I feel like sometimes I'm in old school training and I'm not. So I need to progress and move on. Okay. So I mentioned the golf earlier. So I found, that thing, hey, only 10% of the golfers, but think about this, and you could predicate it over any topic, but what a great question. If you get to talking about golf, and again, you can say about anything, what do you like most about golf? What a fantastic question. I mean, he or she, it's, is it competitiveness? Is it getting better at something? Is it the disconnect to get away from things? I mean, what is it? I mean, I don't even know who we're talking about, and I'm curious right now. Like, why would they like golf? If somebody asked me, it would be two reasons. I love being, it's a time where I can be with my good friends. And golfing, for those of you who don't golf, I don't know about other golfers, but to me, you only golf with really close. It's almost like if you would ask that dude to help you move or accept it, then you can golf together. Like that's how intimate it has to be, because you're spending 4 hours with somebody. So I get to be with my closest friends. And honestly, it's a disconnect for me because I have such a chaotic, awesome life. But probably the biggest driver is just trying to get better. Like I can go out and hit golf balls and stay out there for like 3-4 hours at the range. Here's why. Because if I'm clicking it, I'm like, oh, I want to stay here. I want to get this muscle memory. But then if I miss it, I'm like, oh, I can't leave till I fix this. And then I fix it and then I'm clicking. I'm like, oh yeah. And next thing you know, my phone's ringing. Where the heck are you? Oh, I didn't know. So anyway, so we're kind of blending into number 6 here. I'll stop real quick if anybody's got a comment. I got about another 15 minutes or so before my heart out. But this last, I literally am looking at the entire last chapter in my screen. So it's not a lot. Again, this is a lot of review when we get here. I think, to me, we were talking about it today. Jason had a birthday today. Hey, happy birthday, Jason. So anytime somebody has a birthday here at corporate office, we have a nice lunch. We had it catered by Carrabba's today, which I really liked, but it made me very tired. I have to admit, I literally was dozing right after that. But and we were talking about masks. And I said, and my father, he passed in COVID. He had other conditions, but COVID was a major reason. And I was FaceTiming him as he in his last days, and I got to visit him in the very last moment. And so I saw what COVID did to him in addition to everything else. So I'm very sensitive to it. Like I'm very close to it. And even with that, now this is an innate feeling. This is not a political statement. I'm not advocating for this. I am using this to illustrate a point. When I put on my mask, I don't feel safer. Unless we're talking about it in a sense like this, I don't even think about that. I'm literally putting my mask on because I want others around me to feel comfortable. I don't want to be that guy where I'm an irritant to everyone walking around because I got a statement. To me, it's not that important. But more importantly, I'm a business owner. And here in Florida, or at least in the county that we're in the city that we're in, the business owners gets fined, not me. If I walk in without a mask, so I'm like, no way. And here's why. I literally, and my daughter told me once, she gave me a great compliment. This was probably when she was 7 or 8 years old. And we were in an Office Depot and we walked out. And like I said, I go, thank you, John, or whatever his name was. And my daughter told me, she goes, it's almost like you're looking to wow people with your kindness. And I thought, wow, thank goodness she doesn't see me in my off days, right? She caught me in a moment where I got it right. And I do, honestly, guys, it's almost like at Christmas when you give something and it just feels good. I do like giving, and I feel like that's how I feel. It's like to smile at someone, to call them by their name, to thank them for their service, to be pleasant. I think is so easy. It's such a small sacrifice for what can be such a huge reward. Just being nice to people. Do you know how we stand, certainly in the environment that we're in right now? If there's a long line of people waiting to be irritated and frustrated and short and curt and dry. There's no shortage of those people. So I do want to be a blessing to people. And I don't care if you have my faith or not. That doesn't matter. The word blessing is not spiritual. It just means that you're a positive influence on someone. And I've talked to you about the energy that comes out of our frontal lobe. Do the research. There's amazing data out there. I've talked to you about what happens when we flash a smile at someone and the stories that you read of people who are in despair and someone was nice to them and it turned them around. It's like, who knows, right? And for me, it's so much easier for me to be pleasant, to be joyful. If I have, it's hard to be angry when you're thankful. Like if you're a person of my faith, it's hard to hate people from your knees. If you're a person of faith, get on your knees and try to hate somebody. It's very difficult to do. It's very difficult to treat people poorly when you're thankful. It's very difficult to treat people poorly when you have a joy in you. And instead of, and listen, I'm an irritable guy. Guys, you talk to my family, I have a long fuse, but there's a side of me that is very, very aggressive. So I'm not, puppy's breath and ice cream. I'm not advocating this from a throne of righteousness by any means, but this is something that I do better than interrupting people. I interrupt people all the time. And do you know how much I hate people interrupting me? I can't stand it. And I do it all the time. And I try not to. And I even had an experience just a couple days ago with one of our reps for one of our vendors. And I like her. She's helpful. She's responsive. But every time I talk to her, I literally have to say, Anna, please let me finish my thought. Just let me get my thought out. And then I want to hear what you have to say. And it's very irritating. I like her, so I don't let it get to me, but it can really get to me. And I'm telling you, I think some of the features of people that we are irritated most at, and analyze this for yourself, don't take my word for it, but it is really true for me. Some of the human features that irritate me the most are the very features that I have. It's just true. I mean, I like interrupting. I am the worst at it. I've tried my entire life. I don't know how to get better at it. I do once I realize I've done it, but I haven't gotten to the point. Now, sometimes I don't, like if I'm thoughtful of it, but then I get, and next thing you know, I can't wait to, here's the solution I have. And I can't wait to get in there and, back to me. Right. So, and I think that's why Dad and I made that up, is because, that's not something that we shine at. Something that is more intuitive to me is being a purveyor of peace, being an agent of joy, having an air about me. And listen, it can be, we talked about last time, like if you're not feeling it, fake it till you make it, right? Tell yourself I'm happy, smile. The physical engages the attitude, right? I think we talked last week about one doesn't come before the other, they go together. So we can indirectly affect our happiness quotient by how we physically conduct ourselves. Now, and then a couple lessons before that, we talked about the difference between happiness and joy. Happiness is an emotion, joy is a state of mind. Joy has very little to do with outer circumstances and very much to do with our perspective on those circumstances. Happiness has very much to do with outer circumstances, but we can have an indirect impact on that by having a physical awareness and a mental awareness of trying to get there. And we talked about, if you can't have a hard time feeling joy, go serve somebody, go to a kitchen, go to a homeless place to donate time, talent, money, whatever. But when we serve people, we take the focus off ourselves and it changes. It causes us to kind of rewire our perspective. And I think when we get around people that have it much worse than us, it does inspire that thankful fire. Like, man, and like I was talking to Pell today, who's a guy who does our automobiles. I've known him forever. He's a great friend of mine. And we were talking about Bitcoin. And now when I got in Bit, where it is, and he goes, hey, man, he goes, years ago, I got into Bit and I wasn't happy about the way it was going. So I pulled out. And it was like when it was at 1,600, it's at 40,000 or 30,000 now. And I go, all right, now I know that sucks, but let me tell you this story. This is a true story. There's a guy out there who got into Bitcoin very early on, and it all turned into $238 million. Problem is, he put that into an electronic vault that encrypts it. So he's got 10 opportunities to put in the right password. He's used up 8, has 2 more. When those 2 go, if they're not right, gone. $230-something million. So all of a sudden, Pell's perspective has changed. He's like, hey, at least I ain't that guy, right? I mean, that'd be pretty bad. If it were me, I'd just do the 2, get it over with. Like the anticipation would be worse than knowing, right? He's laying in bed every night. Like, what could it be? What could it be tomorrow? And you can't, when those encrypted things, you can't get into it. It's gone. It's gone. So again, it's just an example of, getting a picture of something that's worse than what we have. And then it's twofold. It's not just driving through Skid Row and going, oh, these people got it rough, I feel better. It doesn't really work like that. What does work is when you serve that cause. And we talked maybe a couple months ago, about how my paradigm was changed a little bit because I saw a TED talk about a woman who dropped this key of thought in my head, which was your emotions can be road signs to our destiny, to our best us. Meaning, and his example was, or her example was, if I'm reading the news every day and I am enraged every day and I'm emotional, I have always been like, hey, there's a positive side. This too is good in it. This too is part of it. This too shall pass. That negative emotion is not a good thing. Block it out. And she caused me to rethink it. She said, because let's just say that, like, if I'm reading the newspaper and I'm watching the news and I'm enraged, I'm having a heavy emotion about it. Well, maybe that's a sign that I need to move towards some kind of justice activities or some way of making a difference in helping people and bringing upon fairness. It was his example, but you can use it for anything. Like if I get enraged at this human trafficking thing, we've got here probably 100 miles from us, it's called Immokalee. And it's we got pastors all over the place that are pouring down there in missions because of human trafficking. So if I were to say, well, God's going to, and I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just trying to prove a point. Well, God's using that. He uses all things. And, and I don't feel that. Well, that's okay. Right. I pray for him, whatever. But if it's like, oh my God, I can't sleep at night. I'm just enraged. It's like, well, maybe that emotion is driving you to go do something in that realm. And that if you feel that, then that's part of like the inner you. It's springing forth a genuine emotion. And in that is purity of desire. So again, it's, wisdom is counterintuitive. And I know that we're only doing this an hour a week. This would be a topic that we could do like nightly sessions for 2 weeks and really dive into, how to really have proper perspective of things and not let emotions misuse us, but use emotions for our own gain, if that makes any sense. So I think the only reason I bring all that up is because a lot of times when we're communicating with people and we're letting them talk, they're going to say things that might spark an emotion in us. Don't let that emotion misuse us, I think is the message there. And so be pleasant, be sincere, what did I put here? Smile and be sincerely pleasant and thankful for people in your daily walk. I think I said it last week in Office Depot. I thanked that lady that she was there because I was able to get what I had to get. And you could just tell it just changed her. And I have tons, and I'm sure we all have those stories where you say something nice to somebody and you just see their body language change. And that's real. And that's being a positive influence on people, which is what this is all about. All right, read. Did I bring my book? I told myself to read a quote. We are coming up on it. Does anybody have any comments, questions, errors, omissions, additions, cares, concerns while I look this up? 95. I was like, I don't see anything on this page. All right. Anybody? Okay. If we are so contemptibly selfish that we can't radiate a little happiness and pass on a bit of honest appreciation without trying to get something out of the other person in return, if our souls are no bigger than sour crab apples, we shall meet with the failure we so richly deserve. I totally agree with that. Now, here's another line in here. And listen, I'm going to disagree with Dale. Very unusual. But I am a critical thinker. Always make the other person feel important. I crossed out feel. Because I think feel is where the ball meets the bat. I think they are important is the proper approach. And if you make someone important to you, they're going to feel it. So I wouldn't worry about changing them as much as I'd want to worry about changing my own activity. Because obviously, there we go, right? What can we control? What can we not? I cannot control this person's reaction. All I can control is myself. So I need to make that person important to me. And that importance cannot draw from what we might get from them. It can't. It has to be a hearty, healthy respect for that human, right? And if you're not there yet, first of all, if you're not there right now, I don't believe, the only thing that doesn't change is the fact that everything changes. I've certainly had seasons where I was drier or colder and seasons where I was warmer. I would say that your association, your self-development, your quadrant 2 activities, your service will help you. And certainly exercise. I mean, that's a big part of quadrant 2 exercise. That's going to help release all your feel-good chemicals, neurochemicals. epinephrine, norepinephrine, all that stuff. So we can engage in activities to help ourselves become more appreciative and more loving of people, because not everybody's there all the time. I get it. There's sometimes I'm not there. Typically it's early in the morning. All right. Always make a person important. Practice the golden rule, right? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And then I like what he said, like person might be like, well, how, when, and where? I need the specifics on this golden rule. It's like, there are no specifics all the time. It's like, how do you know when someone needs to be encouraged and uplifted? They're breathing. Everybody does all the time. Everybody's going through something, people. And we know that. I'm not speaking to you, or I'm not speaking at you. I'm speaking with you. Everybody, like I'm going to close with this. Let me see. There are some good phrases. Let me say this on 97. I love practical stuff. There are some good phrases in here that I would incorporate into your vocabulary. And we talked about some others a few weeks ago, like, so if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying this. So if I understand correctly, you're saying that. So, and just reaffirming people. And then there's a few here that I think are really practical. And I'm going to close with this, and I got to fly. I told this story before, so if you've heard it, I apologize, bear with me. I was watching a show called The Dog Whisperer. I don't know if it's still on. The guy's name is Cesar Millan. Never saw an episode. I only saw one piece of one episode. And just like He-Man, Beatrice, it changed my life. So there's picture this 70, 80-ish pound lab mutt dog. Pretty dog, younger couple in a townhome. And Caesar was brought in because when they left the townhome, the dog would tear up the place. And when I say tear up the place, I don't mean like ripped up the couch. I'm talking about yanking windowsills out of the drywall. I didn't know this, but most doorknobs, do you know doorknobs are hollow? A lot of them? Because he chewed it down to a nub. Like he just crushed it. He tore the blinds out. He ripped up the couch. And I'm a Southern boy, right? I mean, I was born in Florida, but we're kind of the dirty South, I guess. We picked up a little bit of it. And one of them is I'm a dog lover, but a dog's a dog. And I was thinking to myself, that damn dog, he tore up my eye, man. I mean, I'm literally starting to get angry watching this dog. And the camera pans over to the female owner, and she's got a tear coming down her cheek. And Caesar says, why are you crying? And she said, because I can only imagine the turmoil and chaos that are going on in his little spirit, in his little mind, to create that kind of destruction. Oh man, I could cry. What an amazing perspective. How easy is it to get angry at an alcoholic, a gambler, a person making mistakes, a person creating destruction in their lives? When wouldn't a better perspective be, man, I really feel for that person, because who the hell knows what they're going through to cause that, right? I mean, it's easier with kids. When you see a kid acted up in school and then you learn that they're abused at home, it's like, oh, we knew there was something there. I didn't put that in my notes. I didn't even think about it when I prepared for this, but that story meant a lot to me. And I hope it means a lot to you. And I think that that's a better perspective, and it can be parceled out and predicated over so many different things that aren't as egregious as, an alcoholic or a gambler or a drug addict, tearing up their lives. Maybe it's just a person with anger who's, mildly destructive in every little, conversation they have. My prayer for all of us, including myself, is that we have a tender heart for people, and we understand that everyone has their own story. They've got their own thing going on. And sometimes it's better to not be around people. And I get that. I'm not saying that we need to be a punching bag, or I'm just saying that if we have that perspective about people, I think it makes all this, I think that perspective is our hands going in the right way, if that makes any sense. All right, you guys. Yes, Dana Boyd. You're muted, sweet. I got him. I think you're muted.
Oh.
There you go.
Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, I forgot. I just want to read this one quote. Sorry, my dog I love my dog. She's driving me nuts. I don't know if this is a dog book. I know. I love her. Ooh, I love her. But this quote, I love it so much. I shared it on Facebook. It said, a smile costs nothing but gives much. It enriches those who receive without making poorer those who give. It takes but a moment, but the memory of it sometimes lasts forever. None is so rich or mighty that he cannot get along without it, and none is so poor that he cannot be made rich by it. Yet a smile cannot be bought, begged, borrowed, or stolen, for it is something that is of no value to anyone until it's given away. Some people are too tired to give you a smile. Give them one of yours, as none needs a smile so much as he who has no more to give. I love that. Makes me cry.
I know. I promised I wouldn't. Oh no. If Leandro was here, he would have loved that. I'm so sorry. Leandro, that one's for you, buddy. All right. Hey, you guys. Hey, and I do miss Leandro. He's a little sick, so keep him in your thoughts. He was out today. Thank you so much, you all. I really enjoyed this time. And like I said, I have started pinning some things for the book. So I think maybe next Thursday. And the only reason I think in the beginning, I want to read just a little bit to you to kind of get your feedback on where I'm going with it. And I mean like a paragraph, just because anyway, and then we'll start the recording. So it won't be something that'll be recorded, but I feel close to you guys. And I feel like this is part of the reason that I've been so inspired to start writing. So I'd love to share a little bit of it with you, not for the sake of grandizing and look at me, but it's really a product of kind of what we're studying. And I think it'll really be a cool bow that we wrap around the gift of our time. It sounded corny, but I meant it, right? Because John Maxwell's my guy. All right, you guys have a great day. Love you. I don't know how to do it. Oh, I do that. All right, you guys have a great day. Thank you so much. Appreciate you all. And please communicate with me if you need me. Everybody knows my email, right? If you guys want to chat about something personal, let's do it. You guys are and then there were 10 in the wolf pack. We're the wolf pack. See you guys.